Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 13 of Immortal X-Men, written by Kieron Gillen, but before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens up from the perspective of Cypher, the quietest member of the Quiet Council. And when we see him, he is sitting back and watching the council members debate about the topic of the day, until he notices something strange happening. And that was leaves falling from the tree. Now, he found that in itself pretty weird, considering Krakoa is in complete control of what goes on within itself. So of course, he does his due diligence in asking Krakoa what is going on. Now, the way Krakoa communicates isn't as simple as speaking English, for he communicates in various different ways. It is a complicated answer of scent, pheromones, the moaning of bark, juxtaposed with the whispers of the wind through fronds. It speaks in what feels like shivers down one arm. It features many complexities of the specifics of its biosystem. Its diet, the time, the place, but they sum up in a single word. It is a word that has many meanings in the Krakoan language. It also, on the other hand, has at least two meanings in English, too. And the meaning is that it is fall. So anyways, getting back to the council, we find out that the outside world now has complete knowledge of the Sinister's timeline, and it is going as well as anyone would have expected. Because the outside world is completely pissed off at what could have taken place in this timeline. And what makes this whole situation worse is that this action gave credibility to the people who believed Krakoa had a secret plan to take over the world. Because in a way, Sinister was a member of the council, and this was indeed his doing. So the council as a whole must take the blame for it. So to smooth things over, Emma went to the United Nations in order to stand on the behalf of Krakoa. But when she arrived, there were a whole lot of people protesting what the mutants potentially could have done. And to further add gas to the flame, a woman whose child was resurrected in the Phoenix Foundation approaches Emma to ask if her daughter will be affected by the Sinister gene, but to her dismay, Emma was completely honest to the woman and said she thinks she wouldn't. Which was not what the mother wanted to hear at all. So as you may have guessed, considering the fact her whole character is about protecting the kids, this situation shook Emma to the core. So in a fit of rage, she lashes out at the members of the council who voted to put this into action, which includes Colossus, Selene as well as Shaw. She states that Shaw is supposed to be a businessman. And as a businessman, he should have seen this coming before he joined in and voted with Colossus. And as for Colossus, his self-destructive ethics was what got them in trouble in the first place. But see, her rage did not stop there, because she also goes on to state if Kurt was still on the council, then he probably would have voted for Colossus as well. Now despite Emma's outrage, Charles couldn't sit back and let Emma bad-talk Nightcrawler the way she was, because Kurt has suffered unimaginable traumas. For his form was warped monstrously and painfully, and was ultimately used as a tool by Orcus to murder, which is a violation that clearly shook him to his core. And then on top of that, he had his very concept of hope torn from him to be used as a weapon. And finally, during Judgment Day, he resurrected himself over 20 times to fight the good fight and chose to remember each death to increase his odds for victory, despite Charles advising against it. But see, that in itself is part of the problem, because Charles as a friend didn't stop him. Which ultimately shows how they have been poor custodians of each other, and how they have failed in their duty to care for the fellow mutants. So with Emma and Charles going back and forth, Selena interrupts the two and states why people who cannot vote are hogging all the floor time. Basically saying their opinions mean nothing now in the grand scheme of everything. So with that said, Emma snaps back by saying she wishes that Hope Summers had eavesdropped in sooner to see what was going on. So she could have stopped her from becoming a member of the council. But see, based off that statement, Charles then jumps in and states that they had nothing to do with their vote. And they stuck to the rules, by not interfering, which is proof in itself that they are not infected by Sinister. But according to Emma, that is a weak man's argument. Because maybe that was all a part of Sinister's plan the entire time, to cause division within the council, as well as to appoint Selene as a member. Now, the reason why Selene being on the council is a big deal is because on the Before the Fall of X the Sinister 4 issue, she is revealed to be working with Orcus. Which means everything she does is in opposition to what the Quiet Council wants for the betterment of mutant kind. And the only person who is trying to speak out against it is none other than Destiny. The same Destiny that has been discredited in the previous issues for keeping secrets about Sinister. So because of that, she could give all the warnings she wanted and no one will listen, which is why Selene is so willingly and openly mocking the precog. So with the council in an uproar, Exodus moves for a motion to bring Sinister out of the pit to tear the truth from him. But that was quickly shot down by Katie Pride due to Sinister's potential ability to activate his embedded X gene inside the council member. So with mistrust and party lines forming within the council, the situation was going more and more tense between all members involved. So Exodus comes up with an easy solution to the dilemma of Selene being on the council with voting power, and that was by removing her from the equation. Because if he kills her, she will have to be brought back by the Five's resurrection process, which in turn will cause her to lose her ability to vote and further hinder the council. But to Selene's credit, she was not about to go down without a fight. But unfortunately for her, she was no match for Exodus, the Omega-level mutant. So as he prepares to separate every molecule of her and scatter it to the four corners of existence, Storm interferes and attacks Exodus, catching him off guard. Now, Exodus states that Storm is fighting for a monster who threatens their people, while he is fighting for the nation. So with the two at a standstill, Storm brings up that if they both went at it and truly unleashed their powers, then they would kill everyone on the island. Which was all she needed to say to end Exodus' attempts to take out Selene. So with Exodus sitting on his knees, he makes it clear that they may be able to put Sabretooth in the pit. They also may be able to put Sinister and Selene in the pit as well. But when it comes to people like Storm and himself, there is no way anyone can control them. For if they choose not to be governed, then there is no way to force them into submission. Because the only way to govern people like them is for them to allow themselves to be governed, which is the pretense that allows their utopia to work. So slowly Exodus began to return to his feet and continued to say how he used to laugh at the Iraqis and their battles, but they actually ended up knowing the simple truth, which is that there is only power, and those with power cannot be controlled, because the strong and powerful are the ones that lead. Which is why they need a common purpose. Something for all of them to believe in. So they choose to be together, but there is no common purpose to maintain their union. For Exodus tried to make one, but it ended up being a lie. Because this whole time he wanted to create Krakoa as a Garden of Eden to fight for, but he realized that there is no Krakoa. Because over the years they compromised with the devil and invited all the snakes into the Garden of Eden and expected it to remain the same place. Which is a good point, because people like Shaw and Selene are only out for their personal interest, not the nation's. So with tensions boiling over, the council chose to convene at a later time, so everyone can recover from everything that just transpired. So with everyone going their separate ways, we jump over to Professor X overlooking the island. And from behind him walked Doug, for he wanted a word with Charles about the state of the council and the island as a whole. And to Charles' surprise, Doug went on to say Charles is tarnished and is unable to save the nation, and if he continues to try, then he's going to drag down the whole nation with him. So to better articulate his point, he invited Charles to read his mind in order to get a better understanding of what he wanted to convey. And the way they did it was via a data page in the form of a letter to the professor. For the letter went as follows: Have you noticed the leaves of Krakoa falling? I have, and I know why. It's falling because we've been bad, mainly by trying to be good. I let Moira go when Destiny and Mystique schemed to kill her. Most of all, I have been running the pit as you wanted. You, Emma, Exodus, Hope and Sinister were the only people who actually got the trapped feeling of nothingness. Everyone else I gave them a psychic place to be, which Sabretooth used, and is also why he and everyone you put in with him escape and why the pit is actually empty, bar Sinister and the Strucker twins. And up to this point, I've been hiding that from you. I'm sorry that I betrayed you, but I'm not sorry I did it, because it was wrong. I know you viewed the pit as a glorified naughty step, but it just isn't. We couldn't do what you asked, but Sabretooth getting out changed things. For everyone realized what the pit was and what you have done. And I'm not talking about people like Jean and Scott or anyone who could imagine themselves on the Quiet Council. But the people more like me, the ones who don't go into combat, the mutants you're trying to protect. And because we are persecuted people, we know what a bad government looks like, and the pit is it. And with Sinister's timeline and Beast going completely out of control, people don't believe in Krakoa anymore. And Krakoa, the island, feeds off us all, and because of that Krakoa is sick. And in order to fix it, we need to be good, and you holding on to power is making us sick. So following that letter, Charles crumbles under the pressure, for he never intended to be the problem that hurt their nation. He never liked the terms or concepts of mutant separatism or mutant essentialism, because his work was always based on the fact that mutants are humans too, and it was always their oppressors who would proclaim that mutants were not humans. And in some way, shape, or form along the way, the mutants started to believe the same thing as well. And now, since Apocalypse is gone, Moira betrays them, and Max is now dead, which now leaves him all alone trying to keep things together. And if he was being completely honest with himself, he agrees with what Exodus said over his dream, for the people of their nation need something more to unite them, even if it means letting go of his dream. So for a long time the professor remained quiet until he spoke, for he had a plan. And his plan was to put forth a proposition, because they have failed, and this council's authority is bankrupt. So at this year's Hellfire Gala they will announce the end of the Quiet Council and get rid of the old management and promise that the new one will be better. Now this was something Shaw did not see coming, for he wanted to use the chaos to consolidate the power. Which is why Hope points out that she knew he would have an objection. And considering they didn't have time to debate, only a few people knew of their plans. And the reason why they did it this way was so people wouldn't have the chance to scheme or do something stupid to hold on to power. So with that said, Hope declares that she has spoken to the five and they all agreed to go on strike until there is a regime change. So as you may have guessed, people like Shaw and Destiny were against it and wanted them to reconsider, and as for Exodus, he was curious on what the next step would be forward, because he saw democracy as a very human idea. So as the council wait for a solution, Cypher stepped forward to speak his mind, which is a rare thing indeed. For he states it's not perfect, but it's not nothing. It is an evolution. And maybe what they can buy today is a chance to evolve. And he understands how they kept on talking about human thinking in a negative way, but believing they would be able to build a utopia from scratch, and nothing goes wrong and everything goes perfectly is the most human thinking of all. Because history is full of fallen utopias put together by those who thought themselves entirely unprecedented people. And as for what Exodus stated, Cypher declares that was right, because they are not a people, for they were never really given a chance to be a people in the first place. Because they are just people, singular, and they're alone. They have to find a way to be otherwise, and that needs time they don't have. So because of that, he moved to dissolve this council. And just like that, the motion passed with no objections, and for the first time in years, Cypher was able to breathe easily. Until out of nowhere, Krakoa reached out with his vines and grabbed Cypher and dragged him under. And without any hesitation, Hope jumped to her feet in an attempt to communicate with Krakoa using Cypher's language ability. But during the chaos, she was only able to get one phrase from the island before Cypher's abilities were out of range, and that was how it must protect him. So with the island taking away Cypher to protect him from an unseen threat, the council was at a complete loss about what to do. So in an attempt to grasp at any bit of information, they asked Destiny what she is able to foresee. And to their shock, the only thing she could see in the future was a blinding white light of nothingness. So with everything going crazy, Destiny stated that they did something wrong, which Emma corrected by saying they did a lot of things wrong. So with that said, this issue of Immortal X-Men comes to an end. Now this Hellfire Gala is gearing up to be one hell of an event, given the fact that the council is planning on dissolving itself, and potentially making way to an all-new council, considering the mutant nation is still around following the gala, given all the enemies surrounding them in the fall of X. So down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.